Hey folks, so what we're doing today, we're redoing the headstock on the Harley Benton TE-80. So up here, as you can see, I've taken off the logo and the deluxe series. If it had been, one of the old style Delxu series with the fabulous typo, I might have reconsidered it, but wanted to do something different with the headstock. So what you can see here, this isn't actually sanding. What this is nail polish remover, conveniently in a nice manly looking bottle. This one's 100% acetone. It's really strong, and basically this is just the results of rubbing it with a Q-tip. And I was hoping to be able to take the logo off without taking the finish off, but as you can see, that's not how it worked out. Obviously it was only here, but I figured I'd go ahead and do the rest to match, and did everything I could get to without taking the strings off, so that's what comes next. But figured I'd keep it playable as long as I could. So that's what's up. Now we're on to the next step. Oh, something I wanted to mention, I don't know if you can tell, but I filed the bird beak off, so it's got more of the fender and Mad Catty kind of curve there, and I did it with my trusty old bastard file. And the way I did it was, I did it with the guitar sitting up in the guitar stand, and then I went from front to back on the headstock like this, and the file's so long there was never any danger of pulling it back and gouging it into the headstock or anything stupid like that. So I just filed it around and used a piece of 400 grit sandpaper to just kind of shape it the way I wanted it to look. So it'll be even better when I get the new decal on there. But the next thing we have to do, we have to get the rest of this finish off. Just doing the front. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, I'm just doing the front, and gonna get the rest of this finish off and then shellac it. Got some Zinsser amber shellac. Gonna brush it on there, and we'll see how it goes. Now, just to show you how well this acetone stuff works, just wanted to show you right here. You can see it starting to lighten up right there. See, took that right out. So as you can see, the stuff comes off pretty easily. If you use quadruple zero steel wool, that'll speed up the process a little bit too. So I'm going to go ahead and knock the rest of this off and be back in a minute. Okay, so now I'm taking the tuners off. Just wanted to show this in case you've never taken tuners off before. The screw in the back just makes it stable. What really holds it in is this nut here. I have a 10mm socket. I just put it on there. And pop it loose. And then you can just, and you'll notice it moves around really loose. That's normal for tuners. Um, anyway, so we got the headstock all cleaned off, got it prepped, and gave it a light sanding to make sure it's nice and clean and flat. And now we're gonna put on the shellac. Okay, so here we are, about 4 or 5 coats in. You can see that we're getting places. Alright, so after about 6 coats of shellac with very light sanding in between, in order to remove any rough patches, here it is. I think I got it pretty close. Definitely looks nice to me. Grain's popping out pretty good, so that's nice. But yeah, definitely happy with how it came out. In case you're wondering what the masking tape's about, it's because I was using steel wool, and as you can see, all the leftover gunk from the steel wool went straight to the pickups. So that's what the masking tape is about, as you can see. But yeah, it's coming out pretty good. Now just gotta prep it for the gotta do the decal next. That's what it is, the water slide decal. And I saw a really good video about that on YouTube. I'm gonna post the link to that in the description, because these guys could do a much better job of explaining it than I would. And then we'll be back with we'll see how the decal came out, and gonna spray over it with some polyurethane, so hopefully it doesn't explode. Alright, so we got the decal applied, and here is my improvised spray booth. About to shoot it with some polyurethane, and we'll see what happens. Alright, here we are getting ready to put on the final coat of the polyurethane. Got this stuff here. It's pretty awesome. You can do basically a coat every hour. I've been just all day long yesterday, do a coat, wait for it to dry, maybe an hour, spray some more on, you know, come back an hour later, maybe sand a little bit if it looks kind of bumpy, and just, you know, coat after coat, and it's going on really well. So yep, so time for the last coat. Got our decal all flattened out, so we'll see what happens. A couple things I wanted to mention. You do not want to use shellac. Yeah, so at least the shellac that comes in a can, the stuff that I showed you, it actually has wax in it, which apparently reacts poorly with nitrocellulose and polyurethane. So that's actually the last thing in the world you want to put on your headstock if you're going to clear coat over it. So instead, I would definitely recommend stain. In my case, and I've heard that True Tint, I think it's called, is the best kind, but I don't know. Because I'd already shellacked mine when I found out, so I was like, okay, well, here we go. But other people on the web have, you know, reported that they've put the two together and, you know, nothing bad has happened. So I'm about, I don't know, 10 coats in now with polyurethane semi-gloss, and we'll see what happens. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention, if you do this, I do definitely recommend this Minwax stuff. I also recommend that you get a tack cloth. A tack cloth is basically like a really sticky cheesecloth that you use in between coats when everything's dry, and you pat the surface, and then that picks up any dust or anything like that that might be on the surface there. Apparently they're bad if you're using water-based, I think, or acrylic. I don't know. You have to Google it, but this regular polyurethane, as far as I know, is oil-based, so I think I'm okay. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. I left the tape on the whole time. We'll see if there's tears in the end, but, you know, from what I saw online and what I saw just watching it dry, I don't think the tape is going to stick to the polyurethane, so we'll see what happens when we take it off. Alright, so here's the finished decal. And that's it. And that has about a bazillion coats of polyurethane on it. There was a couple things I wanted to mention. Oh, the logo, if you probably recognize it, but you might not. It's inspired by the H.S.Anderson Mad Cat logo. As you may know, Hohner, before they made the famous walnut stripe Telecaster, they actually purchased the remaining stock from the Japanese company that made the H.S.Anderson guitars, and they just changed the headstocks and rebranded them with the Hohner logo. So, but this is what the H.S.Anderson logo looked like before. I basically took the original one and I photoshopped it and moved letters around. And the B, for example, the loops in the B were taken from the O. I moved them over there. The upper stem of the B comes from the H. So I just kind of grabbed as many letters as I can. The tail there is actually from, I can't remember what that was from. It was from the original logo though. If you look at it, oh, from the R in Anderson. Yeah, that's what that was. But the cross on the T was the R in the Anderson, the top part. But anyway, so I moved it around in Photoshop, and I just thought it could be kind of cool. I wanted it to be different, but I still wanted to give, you know, Tom and their credit. So I figured H. Benton would be a nice sort of tribute to both. But the Mad Cat I just thought was funny. Kind of like the old skater logos. If you might recall, the skate companies used to they'd use a famous logo, but they'd redesign it and put their, you know, the name of their brand on it. So when you look at it at first, you know, it kind of tricks your mind for a moment. But so that was kind of what I had in mind. But anyway, a couple other things I wanted to mention. I have a list here, so I don't forget. I was talking about putting on tuners before. Tuners don't need to be put on that tight. The little screw is there just to keep them from spinning around, and the collars that go around the front part, those only need to be just past maybe finger tight. What you don't want to do is tighten them up so much that you crack your headstock. So just make sure you're not torquing them on there. Let's see. Oh, I suggest using quite a few layers of poly before you start sanding over the decal to flatten it out. Somehow I kind of nicked mine. I'm not really sure how that happened. Oh look, it's the Christmas clock. But yeah, somehow I nicked mine when I was sanding it. I'm not really sure how it happened. But if that does happen to you, which hopefully it doesn't, you can actually use a fine tip Sharpie to touch up the logo and then just polyurethane over it some more. You can even do it over the polyurethane, so if it happens a few coats in, you have that option. But just make sure you put plenty of coats on. I did like 3/4 of a can before I started sanding it off. Another thing before I was talking about using the, about taking the tape off. Remember I said that I put all the coats on and then I took the tape off? That actually didn't go as well as I thought it might. You have to make sure the polyurethane doesn't leave sort of a lip. So what you want to do is before you do the final coat or two, you want to untape it and then gently scratch off any poly that's sort of made like an edge. I had some here, you probably can't see it, but I had some right here that there it is. That edge, that corner right there, it was kind of an edge that was flipped up, so I made the mistake of pulling on it and ripped that whole corner of the polyurethane off there. And then I just kind of sanded it down and put some more on there, and it, you know, you can't really tell unless you're staring at it. But I would like to help you avoid something like that. So anyway, so yeah, I recommend before you do the final couple coats, pull all your tape off, make sure you don't have any edges, and then retape the whole thing do your last coat, and then just pull the tape off immediately and let it dry. Other than that, let's see. Oh, remember I was showing the masking tape with the how all the shards from the steel wool, the filings or whatever, stuck to the pickups. The best way to take the tape off is to take another piece of masking tape and put it over top of it, and that way it traps the metal pieces in between the two pieces of tape, and then you just peel the whole thing off and throw it away. But let's see. Yep. So like I said, recommend using about 3/4 of a can on your headstock before you start sanding, and then make sure you sand it nice and flat. Don't be afraid of it. And then do your last coats. I basically used a whole can just about, except for what I sprayed on the decals. Oh yes, the decals. I'll have to show you what the decals look like before you put them on the headstock. Okay, so here we have our decals that I printed with Papilio, I think is how you pronounce it, inkjet paper. The paper is actually really super glossy. If you decide to try it, you want to make sure that you follow the instructions that come with the paper. I wasted a sheet that way by not paying attention, because it actually puts the ink on lighter than it would on regular paper, because since it's so glossy it doesn't really soak it up. And when I printed it with regular settings, it just glopped ink all over the paper and just ruined it. It was all streaky. But anyway, so this is what it looks like. It's got about 10 coats of polyurethane on it. You want to make sure that you spray, if you print your own, you want to make sure that you set the ink by spraying it multiple times with poly or whatever clear coat you're using. Real light coats, you don't want to warp the paper or anything, but you just give it a good misting and then come back an hour later and do it again. Same as with finishing the headstock, I suppose. But just wait until it's nice and dry before you spray it again. But once it's set, then it's all good to go. You just want to make sure that it's covered up enough that you can soak it in the water and not damage the decal or the ink at all. Now, about soaking it in the water, the video that I'm going to suggest, the Northwest Guitars UK video describing how to put on a decal, they say to soak it a lot longer than is actually necessary with this kind of paper because it's really high quality. All you have to do is soak it long enough to where it'll slide readily off the backing, and then that's it. You don't need to dunk it because it's going to be clear. It's really high quality, so you don't have to worry about it being foggy or anything like that. So with that in mind, just make sure that you have it nice and wet, and that you wet the headstock with your fingers before you go to slide it off. I cut mine as one solid piece, sort of a serpentine. I just followed the lines of the decal and tried to make sure there's no sharp corners, and I just put it on as one big long piece, and it makes it easier because you don't have to worry about spacing it wrong. So, a couple other things. I actually have some of these up on eBay, so the paper is actually kind of expensive, so if you don't, I mean, you can print them yourself, but if you don't want to, you have that option. I wanted to mention about the semi-gloss. That's what I used. I use semi-gloss, the polyurethane, which I think I mentioned that earlier, but I wanted to talk about sanding it. It actually dries with sort of an eggshell kind of texture, which I thought was kind of cool at first, but then I realized that if you sand it really heavily, not super heavy, but you want to make sure that you take off all the shiny spots, at least for your last couple coats, and that's how you can get it to dry with a really, really flat, nice texture, so it looks a little bit more professional. And I think that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to post them in the comments. And I hope the video has been helpful. Thanks for watching. Alright, so let's get a look at a finished decal.